Hey guys, check this out. I want to show you what I got in the mail today. It's kind of cool. I got this from my friend Larry at Back to the Future Radios. He sent me a package. Now he had, I have to tell you, he had warned me that it was on the way, so I kept my eyes open for it. But I had no idea what was in it. Now I cannot tell a lie. I have opened this package already because I just wanted to see that everything got here safely, and frankly, I was eager to see what it was. But I'll go ahead and show you as if I just opened the box, all right? So it says, Michael, I figured you could use these star washers. And he remembers my squawking about always running out of the right size of star washers. I threw in some extra stuff I know I won't use. I have plenty left. Enjoy your videos. Best, Larry. This is sorry I ran out of ghost turds. I comment on every box I ever get that has ghost turds in it, how much I love ghost turds. Alright, so let's check out what Larry sent me. Oh yeah. Okay, here's the star washers, and these are actually the kind of star washers that I would use when installing like a volume pod or something, and that's really cool because I never have those, and I'm thrilled that Larry sent these. This is awesome because I always need these. I'm always out of these things. So that is so cool, man, and there's a whole bag of these things. Check that out, man. That's awesome. This will last me a long time. That is so cool. What's in here? Oh, cool. Check this out. The other thing I am always out of, and I'm always searching for and scrounging for, are the nuts for the potentiometers. So that's awesome. There's a great big bag full of these things. Wow. Oh man, Larry, you have no idea how much this is going to help me, because this will save me, if nothing else, save me loads and loads of time searching for them. So cool. Well man, I'm not even near done. This box is still full of stuff. Now, I got to tell you a story. I am getting ready. I have two radios right now that I'm getting ready to work on that have dead output transformers. They're both All-American 5s. One is a Crosley. It's a I forget the model number, but it's a cool little Crosley. I won't tell you much more about it because I haven't decided yet whether I'll video that. And the other one's a General Electric, and they both use 50L6 output tubes. And check this out what Larry sent me, man. Wow. There are 4 of these things in here. They all look like they're for the 50L6. These are the output transformers that you would use in an All-American 5 radio that uses a 50L6. That is cool, man. That is so cool. These are new. These are new buggers. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, this will be awesome. I'll enjoy this. Oh wow. Thanks, Larry. This is going to say, because I know the GE has a dead output transformer, and I'm thinking it's open. I've measured it. I checked it already, and the Crosley is not functioning, and I'm thinking the Crosley has a similar problem. I don't know if that was a common problem with AA5s or not, but in any event, I'm set up if I need them. That is so cool. Thank you very much. I have a box full of ones that were made for the 35L6, but these I'm sure are a little bit different, and I don't have any of these on hand until now. Wow, 4 of those, man. That is cool. What's in here? I love these boxes, by the way. When I go to Rayelco, I'll tell a little quick story. When I go to Rayelco and buy resistors or anything from them, a lot of times, as I mentioned over and over, it's a surplus store, and they sell a lot of stuff that was made, decades ago, but is still new. And a lot of times they'll come in the original boxes, and I see a lot of this kind of box, and I grab them up when I can because I love these. They're sturdy boxes, and they're so stackable. So I will store parts in these things. So wow, the boxes alone are cool, Larry. Thank you. Let's see what we have here. I didn't know that IRC stood for International Resistance Company. So that's cool. Oh, check this out, man. Check this out. Oh yeah, Larry. I know you saw the struggles I had with that replacing that can dome. And I'm sure that these will come in super handy for that. Check it out. 3,000 ohms, so this is a good typical size or rating that you see in those. Wow, there's more in here than I can count. And these are nice. These are the nice ones. I don't know what to say. I will really enjoy being able to use these. These will last me a long time, but I do use them all the time. Terrific, man. Terrific. Let's see here. Man, I love these boxes, but I try to open them real carefully because I don't want to tear them up. There we go. Oh yeah. Wow. Man, I'm set up for a long time with these. 3,000 ohms is a really good rating too, because it's going to be very versatile. I'll be able to go up and down quite easily. It's right there in the middle of where a lot of the resistors are in the can dome. So this is going to be great, man. Awesome. I like these ceramic resistors. I think they're great. They're easy to mount. They're not conductive, so they can sit there right against, you know, the body of it is not conductive, so it can sit right there against the chassis and you know, transfer heat that way. These are great. Well, Larry, I got to tell you, man, I wasn't expecting all of this, man. I knew you were sending something, and I appreciate it very, very much, but I wasn't expecting all this, man. And I will use every bit of this. This is all really cool stuff, and it's going to be very valuable to me. So, you know, as John from Arkansas always says, we all know what that means. I want to send a great big old thank you and a salute to my friend Larry from Back to the Future Radio. All right, Larry, thank you, sir. Now, let's address this guy here in just a minute. We're going to, basically, I'm going to take some wet cloth and I'm going to wipe this off. I'm not going to go nuts on it. I might have to scrub it just a little bit or polish it just a little bit, but this thing somebody had put some finish material on the cabinet and they got some on this guy, but that's okay. I'll just polish that best I can. Alright guys, I had a visitor, so I had to stop for a few minutes, but now I want to look at this tone control. And I want to try and clean it up, but you always try to use the least lethal cleaner that you can first, and then work up from there if you have to. So I'm going to scrub this with a little bit of water and see how clean I can get it. And it is helping to get the dirt off. And I have learned with this particular paint, it doesn't do a ton of good to try and polish it, because if it's still assembled like this, you can't get in all the areas, and it starts to look odd when there are areas you can get and areas you can't get. So it's best just to get it as clean as you can, and then the rest of it is patina. Because I'm telling you, you take one of these apart when you don't have to, and you'll be sorry. I mean, it is possible to take them apart, and it's not really that hard, but it can be cuss work putting them back together. You want to be real careful cleaning these letters off. I've learned that the letters won't wash off with the initial wipe, but if you leave the water sit there, sometimes they do. But you want to use nothing stronger than water on these little fellas. And my view always is, it's better to leave the dirt than to take away the markings. Unless the dirt is so bad that it takes away from the appearance, you know, takes away from the general feel of the radio. Often if you just clean it even 3/4 of the way, it makes it nice enough that it's worth your effort, and leaving the rest won't matter that much. You want to resist the urge to get in there and start scraping dirt out, because then you wind up damaging this plastic. But occasionally you can just take the corner of a very small screwdriver and just get that little section there. That won't hurt anything. But don't start scraping down here. These, you see, these words here are more fragile than you think. And in fact, if you wipe them too long, you start to get it fading here, okay? So I'm going to have to stop there because it's starting to do that, and I don't want to have it fade on me. Let me just start this, since there's a lot piled up in these little edges here. Let me just sort of start that so that I don't have to wet this for too long. Yeah, that works really well. If you do break one of these, or if you do have to take them apart, the parts are available. See, a lot of these letters will have been worn off a lot already from use, and you can always tell which control was operated the most. Feel like a dental hygienist. There we go. This one here had snapped off of its clip. It doesn't want to stay there. It's worn, and it may be that I just have to, we have to live with that. When I lubricate it some, it might get better, but I think it's probably broken down there in a hole where it grabs onto the little rod. There's a little rod that all these clip to. The problem is this plastic is fairly brittle by the time it's this old, and so I may have to tell them just pick a setting for this one and leave it there. What we're going to have to do is have Mr. Curtis just pick one that he likes. You know, pick the setting he likes and leave it there, because if you operate a lot, it won't work. So we're going to have to just select one and just sort of leave it put, and I'll tell him about that. Okay, I'm just going to polish that because this, let's see if that'll help. Okay, it is removing it. Again, for those of you that don't know, this is what I'm using. It's a 3M brand, and it's called Perfect-It Extra Cut Rubbing Compound. I get this at a body paint store, auto body paint store. I don't think you can really get it anywhere else. It's a nice polishing compound that isn't too harsh, but it's harsh enough to get through this stuff without really damaging nicely cured paint. The funny thing about all this work, and Mr. Curtis is not one of these people, but the funny part about this sort of work is you can work your tail off and people never know you did it. If you did it right, they'll never know. If I try to get down between all these buttons, I'll wind up breaking something or messing something up. So at some point you got to leave well enough alone and say, okay, that's part of the character. It's a little bit dirty in there, but the price you pay for trying to fix it, it costs money, and it costs time, and it costs frustration. Okay, I got a little water on a Q-tip here. Try to get further into the corners. Okay, not bad. Not too bad. Dry that up. Okay, the next step on this is I want to spray all these contacts with some deoxit, okay? What you have here are little rivets, okay? And these little rivets are the contacts for all these wires. All right, and these rivets, they get between two metal terminals here, and they make a connection between the two of them. Okay, let me see if I can show you. See, there's two metal terminals there. Real thin, flexible metal terminals. And they grip like this. Okay, they grip like this. And then that rivet comes through and makes up the connection between those two flexible terminals, and that's how you get a connection there for the tone control. Well, these things can get awfully noisy, and what I mean by that is when you go to operate them, they make a big static sound as you move them. Okay, and so the way you fix that is just spray deoxit on these terminals, and you kind of clean up the corrosion that's on them. Now, I don't mess with these things much otherwise because they're really fragile. They're not super well, you know, they're one of those few things in a Zenith radio that's not super well made in terms of strength. And so the best thing to do is leave them be. But you go ahead and you spray deoxit in there, and then you operate these things. Each switch you operate it a few times. Okay, just like anything else you do with deoxit. You just operate it and operate it. And then you will work the corrosion off of those rivets and off those little contacts. See? Let me see if you can see how that works. See? And if you look at it, there's that rivet. And now it's making contact. Now it's not. Okay? This one here is the broken one. There's not much I can do for that guy. So all I can do on that guy is just put it in that closed position if they like that, and then move it out of there if they don't. I'm going to operate these other two. You operate each one at least about 20 times, and that'll get that corrosion coming off, and that's all you can really do for them. And this deoxit, I'll dry off the excess, but this deoxit will dry pretty well. Okay, now I'll dry this all off. And the last thing, I'm going to clean these up if I can get to them. Okay, that's about as good as I'm going to be able to get it, and it looks pretty darn good. What do we have left to do now? We have that station preset to do. We'll do that shortly. And I want to put a dial pointer on here and be able to set this thing aside. I'm going to probably load her up with tubes too, and kind of get this thing ready to play. Okie dokie, here's the old 6U5 tube. It's a deadie, but I'm going to ask him if I can keep it for the socket. So let's see, this is the 1232. It's the only loctile tube in the radio, so that's pretty easy to find. Sometimes the loctiles can be a little stubborn about clicking down in place. Don't go crazy with them because you don't want to break anything, but you do sometimes have to push on them a bit. 6J5. And if I remember, it goes over here by the outputs. All right. This looks like a 6A8. Goes right here. I'm going to go ahead and clean that wire shortly, so I'll leave that one disconnected for now. 6X5, one of the wonderful rectifier tubes. This looks like an output, 6V6. 6V6. That's a pretty tube. Even though you can't see inside, it's still a pretty tube. All right, another 6X5. And there's a 6K7. This one has a tube shield on it. So we'll go ahead and fix that up. I like the Zenith tube shields. They look cool. And the way they work, they have a little dimple on here, okay? And that little dimple shows up inside the thing too as a little raised section. And so when you bring it onto the tube shield mount, there's a part of the tube shield mount right over here that has a slot cut in it, and there's one on the other side. This dimple rides into that slot, kind of like the little nub on a light bulb fits into the slot on a bayonet style mount light bulb. You just put it on there and you turn it and it'll stay in place. Okay, I've got to lacquer that, so I'm going to leave that disconnected too. And I have the good old 6Q7, this little RCA metal envelope tube. This does not require a tube shield, even though the original was just a glass tube and it did require one. So there's a tube shield mount, but no tube shield. All right, I've already cleaned this wire, so I'll go ahead and mount that. So let me go get these wires done. I hope that's the last time I need to yank the tubes on this. We'll be doing an alignment sometime later today. Okay, let's go ahead and hook this wire onto that 6A8. This wire onto that 6K7. There we go. Now let's set this beauty aside for just a few minutes while we work on that station preset. We are going to work on this guy next. Okay, now I'm going to have to set up for that. So just give me a few minutes and I'll do that. Okay guys, we're going to basically clean and lubricate this little fella here. What you have here is a whole set of variable coils. All right, they're tuning coils. And there are capacitors on here too. Anyway, what I need to do is take this apart. And the best way to do it is you have to bend these little tabs here, and you bend them about 90 degrees off from what they are so you can just lift that off. You don't want to have to stress it to get it apart. And this one here that wasn't hooked, I'm just going to bend that one too. Then all you do is just lift this off, and you try to remember which way you put it on, okay? The tabs go opposite the mounting bracket. And then you set that thing somewhere safe. Now I'm going to tell you something about these guys. The less you mess with it, the happier you're going to be. Because there are some very, very fine, hair-fine wires in here, okay? Alright guys, let me tell you something about these little babies here. The less you mess with them, the happier you will be. And here's why. You see those real fine wires I'm touching right there? Those wires, if they break, this doesn't work. Now the radio will still work, it just won't work in automatic if you were to break all of these. So I really don't like to mess with those. I don't even get in there with a brush to dust it off. I figure that dust's not going to hurt anything, I leave it be. It's the same on this side, only this side's clean. This capacitor will be fine. It looks like a mica capacitor. Might not be, it might be a film, but I'm not going to sweat it. I really don't like to horse with these. And I mean, you don't want to. You don't want to mess with these because of the risk of breaking them, and everybody likes their automatic tuning to work. And so if that capacitor, for example, isn't quite right, well, that just means you'll be tuning the coil that's related to it slightly differently than if that capacitor were perfect. It'll still work. There's a risk that it will introduce noise or other things, but it's kind of doubtful. The fact that it's elongated like that suggests to me that it's not a mica. Alright, so what I will do is clean those areas that are going to affect the mechanical operation of it. And in the meantime, stay as far away from the fine wires as I can do. So I'll get up here and clean some of this here. I'm going to stay away from these wires in here. I'm used to handling these, so I'll get a little closer than maybe I would advise someone that's not getting, okay? But I have broken one or two of these and had to fix them. And it's not fun. I won't even touch those coils. There's no way. They're going to be fine. I want to get here and get this clean because that's real visible from the outside. But don't wipe the paint off of those terminals, all right? You kind of need that there. So you take maybe this Q-tip has a little water on it, and you wipe that off that way. And honest to gosh, guys, this is about as much as I'm going to do for cleaning. I will deoxit the sliding contacts, but we'll look at that in a minute. This is the hard part because it's really hard to show. There are some sliding contacts that are right down in here. And if you have one of these, if you look in there, you'll see them. And I'm not going to be able to show you much, but I am going to get in there and spray those with deoxit, and that will lubricate the sliders, and it will also clean the corrosion off of those little sliding terminals. You can lubricate where these push button sort of square shafts slide in, and if you do that, just put a little bit on. That's what I usually do. I just put a tiny bit on. So I lubricate those just barely. I'm going to lubricate these brass shafts just barely, okay? And then I'm going to deoxit those sliding contacts, and that's it. I'm going to put it back together and put it back on the radio. If you look right in there, you can just see that sliding contact and how I've cleaned it out. You see that moving? You see that little track on there, that shiny track? It's right down there. That little shiny track is the contact point that this deoxit is cleaned off. That's what you're trying to do. Okay, check this out, the way these are set up. This nut on the outside here it is affixed to the capacitor plate right here. So you can, it really, I think, when you're turning this screw, I think that you are moving the slug in the coil, and this nut, if you were to turn that, you're adjusting the capacitor plate. There's like an outer shaft and an inner shaft. Let me see if I can show you close. All right, here's how these little preset tuners are set up. You see there's an outer shaft, just kind of like the, if you've ever had a car that's older than more, maybe 30 years old, you know that the old style radios, if you had like a volume and then maybe a balance on there, you had two shafts, you had concentric shafts. This big shaft here, the outside one, looks like it's the one that this nut rides on. And then inside of that, it's threaded on the inside too. This long shaft right here with the flat on the end turns in there. That's a screw. So I think the nut actually controls the pressure on this capacitor plate, and then this long screw here with the flat on the end is what moves the slug coil or the slug inside of that tuning coil. So you do have a tank circuit here. There's the capacitor, and then there's a slug on a coil that's connected in circuit with this. Now, if I remember right, the instructions will probably not have you adjust the capacitor. It will only have you adjust the slug. But I'm not entirely sure. That's always how I've done it. That's always how it's said in the instructions to do it, but maybe this one's a little different. But I don't ever remember noticing the concentric shafts. So let's put a little bit of grease on there, and it may not even need it. I'm going to turn them first, and if they're nice and loose, I'm not going to grease that because that'll just invite dirt. So that's the first thing I should do here, is go ahead and see if that turns. Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, that turns easy. Oh yeah, these aren't going to need it. See, other ones I've seen are either steel shafts or they're a brass shaft that runs through a steel thread. This one here is just a tiny bit tighter, but it still feels okay. Yeah, I should have no trouble tuning these, man. Let's look up here. Let's make sure up here, okay? Oh, these turn nice. There's no reason to put lubricant on those. You try to do this while looking at your camera, it's really hard. None of them are bent, so I'm going to leave those alone. I don't really feel like messing with things that I don't need to mess with. I'm just going to invite trouble if I put any grease on those threads. Let's move on. Okay guys, this thing is now clean and dry enough for me to go ahead and put this nice cardboard cover back on. Now remember, these here face this way. They were to your left when I took it apart, so that's how I want to put it back together. And then you just go ahead and run them through the holes. All right, hold it a little bit, squeeze it just a little bit, and go ahead and bend these tabs real gentle now. You don't want to break them. Okay, so there's to it, man. Check it out. Now I'll go ahead and mount this on the radio chassis. I had the deoxit out a minute ago, and I totally forgot to do this. Now I got the tubes all loaded up, so I'm going to have to be careful and just set it down on the transformer. I'm not going to show you the details of this because I'll bore you to death and you'll be tuning into, you know, kittens playing on YouTube or something. So let me just tell you what I'm going to do, and then I'll turn off the camera, okay? This volume pot feels a little bit scratchy, so I do need to try and find a way into that, and they're usually sealed on these Zeniths. But I'm going to have to go in through the shaft or something. I'll find a way to get some deoxit in there. All right, I got to do that. And then I need to, of course, spray off this band switch. Okay, so I haven't done that, and shame on me for forgetting to do that. But I'm going to go ahead and do it right now. I'm going to turn off the camera because that's pretty dull. This pot has openings right here where the terminals come out of it. So I've been spraying deoxit in there and then Just, you know, turning it and working it like you're supposed to. And it feels smoother, and I think it's going to work better. So I need to get down here at the band switch, but before I do that, I need to cover up these items here because I don't want a bunch of deoxit getting on those things causing slippage. So let me cover that with a paper towel. I'll show you what I mean. That band switch is in very close proximity to both the dial string and that belt. So I want to make sure that I don't, when I spray deoxit on this thing, I don't get a whole bunch of deoxit up on those two items. There we go. Okie dokie, let's turn it back around and we'll make some connections. Okay, if you look real carefully, you'll just see the paint markings on these terminals. So, of course, I'm going to take this blue wire, connect it into the blue terminal. We're going to take this black wire and we're going to connect it into the black terminal. Okay, these are beautiful, man. I like how these work. And this red wire, we're going to connect right into the red terminal. There we go. Piece of cake, eh? Nothing to it. Nothing to it at all. Alright guys, we're pretty much done with this chassis. There's really only a couple little things to do. One of those is to take these knobs off and get them soaking so they can get clean, because otherwise I'll be waiting on them. There's nothing wrong with these knobs, so I'll be able to use these. I just need to get them clean. So let me go get those soaking in some water, and then we'll be good to go. There's about 3 stations in Utah that I like to listen to a lot, and I'll usually, again, I usually won't program these for people either, the stations. I'll just tell people how they can do it. But in this case, I'm going to, because it's not the kind of thing that Mr. Curtis wants to do. And I want this radio to be good to go for him as soon as he gets it. So I'm going to go soak this. That'll be the better way to clean this. Okay, let's go ahead and install this dial pointer. Okay, it's nice and clean. So we want to close the capacitor all the way, and then we just put it down here. Now this can turn once it's on there, so it is adjustable, and I will adjust it when I align it. But you just basically push it on, and sometimes you have to hold the capacitor steady while you do that. Sweet. That's all we have time for today. So here's what's up for next time on That Tube Sound. Okay, it's on and all the way up. Let's put some juice to it, okay? 60 volts, we're looking good. 75 volts. We'll probably get sound soon. From your Western Outpost in Salt Lake City, this is Michael. That's all for now.